in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity if it hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what draws behind the curtain? The face of evil's lurking, with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannon could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. Hey, I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing? How are we doing this beautiful, beautiful evening? Hey, Dr. Thunder, how's the video coming through on the now that we're live?
Yeah, it's better.
Oh,
It's
okay,
better.
cool.
The white man is not trying to hold you down right now.
He's not trying to hold me down right now. He's sleeping,
You,
sleeping on the switch, sleeping on the wheel.
yeah, the white right. You're not on the white man's internet right now, so you're okay.
Oh, okay. Nice, 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 nice. Yes, indeed, I am hooked up to the Ghanaian internet, the Vodafone internet, which was acting up for the past few weeks, but I think I'm getting in there. Let me not blame them. Let me not blame them. Maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe I need to get an Ethernet cable and connect directly, which I need to do eventually. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, where are my manners? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. Okay, I am Ike again, and this is my channel. Over here we talk about being better and doing better with strong emphasis on doing. And we got the co-host here on the right, whom you've come to know and love on this particular show every Tuesday. Every Tuesday we come together, giving points on getting ish done. And we're going to get into that as well again today. But before we get there, Dr. Thumb, before we get there, there's some fun stuff going on here in these YouTube streets, isn't there? As a matter of fact, you brought up something backstage.
Yeah.
What did you bring up backstage, Dr. Thunder? You want to share with the people?
Well, it's interesting. So I interviewed Mr. Fantastic, and that interview actually aired this morning. And the name of our conversation, what we kind of focused on in that conversation, we talked about a lot of other things too, but we kind of centered on this idea of beef in the Black Manosphere. And there seems to be like a cyclical kind of thing. BGS Ibmore did a video a couple days ago, and where he was talking about how, it just seems like every once in a while, someone's claiming that the manosphere is going to, the Black Manosphere is done for it this time, and it's not going to survive this thing, and all of this kind of stuff. And it's like a cyclical thing. It's like he said that it's like a spring and fall thing. So when the current sort of beefing is over, then what'll happen is wait until wait until spring, and you'll see something again. And it's interesting because we had been talking about this idea of community and aspects of community that can sometimes be messy, and why you and I tend to sort of stay out of certain kinds of things because that's not our lane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so people will inevitably, once in a while, as part of this beefiness, as part of this messiness, as part of this community aspect of things, they will want you to take a side. Um, and
Yeah.
for me, it is not necessary, and I can explain myself, but sometimes it is impossible to explain yourself to the kind of person who will ask you to take a side. When somebody comes to you and say, "Well, whose side are you on?" Sometimes they come to you in a cordial way and they try to figure out, maybe they try to feel you out. I can kind of figure that out. So, for example, I'm a well-known supporter of Kevin Samuels, and I support him for very
Yeah.
specific reasons. I support whatever I support for very specific reasons. It is rarely ever the case that I just jump in because of a group thing, right? I'm not a group person.
Right.
If you are new to the channel, one thing I'm definitely not is this group person. I'm quite disgusted by the whole thing. So why did I support Kevin Samuels, and why do I still support Kevin Samuels? Because nothing has changed, right? It's because I saw somebody that was coming from a STEM background and then talking about sales. I'm like, sales, Black Manosphere, STEM. Hey, he's got the aesthetics that I like, suits and stuff like that. I've been about that since forever, right? And also the way he talked about money. He talked about money in a way where I've not seen in Black YouTube all around. Because typically it's, oh, Dame Dash talking about money or Rick Ross talking about money. The whole entertainment, art people talking about money. But we never talk about people talking about, hey,
Mm.
how do you form vertical businesses? How do you go out there and sell something? How do you expand the business? Just basic stuff that if you go out there into the world, these are skills you're going to need. But in the Black sector, you only hear
Yes.
it from Rick Ross.
Yes.
And it's like, what the hell? Why are you taking advice from Rick Ross? Shout out to Rick Ross. He's got all kinds of good advice to give. But are you going to be a rapper? Right? How many of those are you going to get? Are you going to be the next NBA football star? How many of those are you going to get? This is a big issue in a particular community. Okay. And I tend to not want to say too much about the ADOS community because I'm not one. I'm not one of y'all, right? So I tend to want to kind of step back. But when I see Kevin Samuels doing that kind of thing, I'm like, hey, that is nice. Now, when you do something like that, when you support somebody for specific reasons, because most people are just regular social creatures, regular normal human beings, they think you're in a club and that everything, and that therefore you're gonna ride or die and everything has to go,
Yep.
everything is everything. I'm like, no, I support Kevin Samuel still for the same goddamn reasons. Okay?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really liked was his show with Ramil Amir, right? The Lions Den, I believe, which was similar to Shark Tank. People calling in and him and Ramil talking about, well, what's your business plan? How much? What are you offering us? Why should we take this deal? That kind of a thing. And it was very exciting to me again to see in Black YouTube people talking about money in some non-stupid way. Let me just be frank, because I think most of this Black shit is stupid, right? All that arts and entertainment is just freaking stupid, okay? And everybody from the outside looking in thinks like, what the hell is going on here, right? So definitely supported him for that. Now, a lot of people have a lot to say about Kevin Samuels, including Ramil Amir now, which are legitimate. And the thing is, people find it difficult to separate and say, well, is it possible to be against his approach of now talking to women about X, Y, and Z? And also still be for the fact that he represents a certain kind of person talking about sales and this, that, and the other. Is it possible to separate it? For me, I don't even, it's not even a second thought. Of course it's possible to separate it. But some people want you to take sides and crap like that, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about the little rant I just went on?
Yeah. I don't take sides. And I'm the same way. I deal with people for specific reasons. And if someone corners me and says, pick a side, I say, okay, my side. I'm not gonna play that game. Look, and and I said this before in your platform, and this is not because I in fraternities. I don't necessarily have something against fraternities per se, but I never wanted to become part of a fraternity because I'm the group thing is not my thing. That's just not my thing. That's not how I move. I like to be able to interact with several different groups, several different organizations. Um, and in fact, even as a multi instrumentalist, I'm doing the same thing. I'm not. I really don't belong to one club. Well, are you the saxophone player, or are you the flute player, or are you the clarinet player, or are you the bass player, or what? I don't even do that. In fact, I don't even want to have that conversation when people start saying stuff like, "Oh, you play so many instruments," and see, because to me, the reason that I play instruments is because I'm chasing the bag, right? It's utilitarian. I'm doing what's necessary to achieve goals that I have, right? And so, um, I don't, and folks will try to get me to identify with a particular instrument. Well, which saxophone did you play first, or which one do you, if somebody had a gun at your head, which horn are you going to grab? You know, it's like um, that's just not what I'm just not into that. That's just not my thing. I'm not going to choose sides. I like Kevin and I like Ramil.
100%.
And
So here's the
and
thing. Now,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
go
it.
ahead, go ahead, go ahead. So
No.
Ramil,
You got it.
yeah, Ramil is Ramil understands what I said in the sense that you support people for very specific reasons, and if you're going to go against them, you're going against them for very specific reasons. So Ramil has his criticisms. As a matter of fact, Ramil did not even have to state his criticisms for you to know that Ramil is not about the kind of platform that Kevin is now doing after his collaboration with Ramil, right? I mean, come on, Ramil is he's the pump and dump, right? He's been clear about it, but he wanted to draw the line on the sand. Now, I think he wants to draw the line on the sand more starkly and say, hey, you know. Plus, there's some other things that are kind of interesting now because there's a Coca-Cola and Pepsi aspect of this. Okay, what I mean, anyways, it's like if anyone is the natural anti-KS, it's him, and he could and he should perhaps stake that claim, right? Coca-Cola's blowing up. Hey, where's the Pepsi, right? If McDonald's is blowing up, where's the Burger King? That kind of a thing. So I don't want to say it's all about business and all that kind of stuff, but there is that aspect. So Ramil understands. But if you see if you see the comment I'm trying to highlight on the screen there, do you see the
Let's see
comment I
here.
must be talking about? I'm sharing my
Oh,
screen
okay, wait a
and
minute. King
oh, gotcha. Yeah,
is it the one that's in the middle?
the one
Yeah.
that's in the
Okay.
middle.
So
Yeah, yeah,
King
yeah.
Ike, I love bro, but don't ever let me see you consorting with an enemy who's going against the Godfather. And I like your comment. Too social.
Yeah. So hopefully the person understands what I mean by that, or maybe they don't get it. But do you know? I mean, you know what I mean by too social, right? That it's like, when comes this high school cafeteria notion of
Right.
this?
Right. Yeah.
What are you talking about, right? It's like grown men here. People should have specific points on which they can agree, disagree. If I agree with Kevin or if I support Kevin, which I still do, and I support Ramil, which I still do, and that these reasons are very discreet and actually they don't even mix, then there was a bunch of helmet people. This person commenting is not one of them. I'm not saying that they want them. They just say people can comment, right? I don't know who they are. But shout out to the helmet people. Helmet people just
Yeah.
being, dumbasses. Hmm.
Yeah. So one thing I'll just say this
Go
last thing,
ahead.
and then we can get into our show.
For sure. Yeah.
But it's interesting because Ramil, in many ways, he's at least partially responsible for this sort of meteoric rise of Kevin Samuels, because
Yes.
Kevin's show is basically using the same format that was established in that Lions Den show. He just switched the folks that he was talking to women. That's basically what his show is. I mean, now obviously he's made some enhancements and tweaks, and Kevin is masterful. There's no question about that. He is he's one of a kind. He's a bad dude. Okay, there's no question about that. He's very good at what he does. Now, another thing that's interesting about this is that people are whatever trying to get folks to you know uh, to pick a side, to get you to pick a side or whatever. And look, we have a show with Ramil. We have a show. We have a regular show on Solo's channel with Ramil.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's just
Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah,
funny. It's like do some research. Just look around.
yeah. And in Ramil's show today, I'll say this, and then we'll run into the topic here. Ramil's show today, there were some idiots in the panel. I mean, because Ramil doesn't do panels anymore. He's done with the audience. Uh, there were some people in the chat doing that sign language thing, start throwing out the rainbow flags, the thing. And it's like, these single mama raised idiots, okay? No shout out to any of you single mama raised people there, but the
Yeah.
specific idiots that are acting like they're fat, ugly moms that should have never been born. They should have rolled down the side of their mom's leg, right? As some freaking wasted sperm rather than ever been born. Okay, yes, I said that. You should have rolled down the side of your mom's leg, you freaking idiot, rather than be born. If that's the
Yeah.
kind of thing that you do, because you're a waste of space as a human being, especially as a man, when you play that stupid game of I'm gonna just throw out insults out there and I'm gonna just try to lump people together due to my freaking inadequacies and insecurities as a bitch ass nigga. Now, speaking about not being a bitch ass nigga, we're gonna get into the topic. We're gonna get into the topic of getting ish done. This is our favorite. This is one of our go ahead.
Okay, I have to say this, man. I know we're trying to get into the show, but something else I just think is interesting is I think I understand Ramil, and he's extroverted and everything with the way he's coming off, and he doesn't hold any punches, and he'll say anything about anybody because he's just fearless. That's just who he is. Okay, that's great. Um, but a lot of like the stuff that he has been saying recently, like he's been critical of like women in the space and women, you know, they get in the bag when guys, they're not getting any bread, but these women are coming into space. It's funny because he has no animosity with Chantel, for instance, who is also on that same show. So he's not
Yeah,
talking about everybody. And he's stating really specific points. He has
yeah,
specific issues. And
yeah.
so anyhow, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, he has these specific issues, Ramil. But the thing is, again, human beings are social creatures, and people are gonna group around Ramil, and when you get a group that is that big, you're guaranteed that the majority of them are idiots. That's just how it's gonna be, right? This is just how people are. Average is mediocre. Mediocre is your mediocre average person out there. They're and when I say idiot, I'm not talking about IQ or anything like that. I'm talking about this inability to separate things. I call it stickiness. Okay, whether it be on the mental
Mm.
level, which is one way of like not being able to be cognitively sound, whereby people cannot separate one issue from the next and the next and the next, but also not being able to separate emotional baggage, story field type stuff, the clique and the club I belong to, the name, the set I claim, whatever the hell it is, from other kinds of things neatly. Not being able to do that, most people cannot do that, right? And I think the more you might be optimistic, I mean, one might be optimistic, right, and say, oh, people are. But I think that Dr. Thunder, we're beginning to see more and more, especially in this space as we in YouTube, that that's how human beings are. Human beings are not like you, Dr. Thunder. Okay, the average person is sticky that way. They don't know how to think. They actually don't know how to think. Am I right?
No, I think you're totally right. And you're being pretty sharp and maybe harsh with the way that you're putting this, but it's totally true what you're saying, and I'm teasing you a bit there. Um, uh, you know, uh, the ability to separate associations, to separate your feelings, whatever your personal biases are, from whatever the even from. Uh-oh. I'm not sure what that was. Uh, hold up.
It sounds
Here, I'm gonna mute.
either Breakfast Club or something like that. But anyways, while you figure that out, yes, 100%. And it is one of the things that keeps you broke, by the way. That inability to separate the various aspects of your being, where, okay, I have family, I have a name, I have social ties, maybe, but it does not mean that X, Y, and Z are not true, even if X, Y, and Z goes against what my mama told me, what this other person that I like told me. I like this person for A, B, and C, but it doesn't mean I have to swallow whole cloth X, Y, and Z. And people cannot do that. What they do is they do the shorthand thing. The shorthand thing is to go with social stuff. What do I mean by that? The shorthand thing is to just belong to a clique, right? Belong to a crew in the high school cafeteria. And everything about that crew you're going to ride or die for, right? Now, that's fine for high school, okay, but most people, the dumbasses that they are, stay that way. And by the way, it is one of the things that will
Yeah.
keep you broke. It'll keep you inefficient. It'll keep you ineffectual in the world. And as a man, it is particularly disgusting to me when I see that kind of behavior amongst other men. Because it's fine for women to
Yep.
be falling for the social things, okay, because that's their lane. But as a man there, I'm like, how can I go hunting, killing deer, or whatever with this man? And if you don't think that hunting and killing deer is not similar to what it takes to be successful in the business world, then your brain is warped, okay? The same thing when I'm out here, I'm in Africa right now for business deals and so on and so forth. I may be in the Bay Area trying to close a deal, whatever it may be. It is still the same dog eat dog world. And if you cannot separate your feelings and your ideas of social fealty, or if your ideas of social affiliations are not neatly packaged, as I said, I spoke Kevin Sanders for X, Y, and Z. I don't have to agree with him with A, B, and C. I don't even have to have any opinions about how he runs his business. As a matter of fact, too, right? I don't know. I think you will always feel like, oh, you must co-sign or not co-sign or say or not say about everything. Like, dude, I don't care. You know, whether you like a Stratocaster or whatever. It's like, who cares? You know, that's your thing. Anyways, now getting ish done, which we're gonna get right back into, is one of the things that it's what the name of the show is, isn't it, Dr. Fahmy? That's the name of the show.
Yes.
And we have given people many different ideas, many different schemes, many different methods of overcoming sloth, for example, of getting the bag, of closing deals, of persuasion. Now, what I would like to do is to focus ourselves or focus our attention in a more general way about how to get things done. Now, we've made videos before on, for example, have made videos of efficiency, how to be efficient, okay? How to have staying power, how to use all these different tactics that I talk about, like externalization. Shout out to the conversation we had yesterday. Shout out to Jordan Peterson, not yesterday, whatever it was, on your channel, Thunder Starts. Go check it out. And we talked about being an assistant to your future self, treating yourself as someone you're responsible for, treating yourself as a community, right? Which is another tactic for getting things done, and also it's great for your self-esteem and all those other kinds of things. But I found this piece of video, Dr. Thunder, that I would like us to react to, and this is going to help us to focus our thoughts as a way of reacting here to, or as we react, we're going to focus our thoughts and give ideas as to what we think about each of the points that are made in this video, most of which we've already kind of covered before, one way or the other. Okay, so let me go ahead and share the video. By the way, it is a summary of a book called Getting Things Done. Okay, Getting Things Done by David Allen, as it says there. And I saw that and I was like, oh, this should be fun. Let's see what this is all about. So let me see, make sure that the
Yeah.
audio is. Let me start this.
Imagine that you're walking back from work, excited that another successful day has gone by, when all of a sudden you realize you never called Mike. He's your best friend, and today is his birthday. But you were so busy the whole day that you never had a chance to call. No problem, you think to yourself. As soon as I get home, I'll wish him happy birthday. But when you do get home, a pile of unopened mail greets you by the door, unwashed dishes are calling your name, and you get distracted by other exciting house chores.
Before we even get into the video, any reactions as to what has been said so far? Okay, besides F Mike and his birthday, which you're probably thinking in your head, right? You're like, oh, Mike, get the hell out! I gotta call Mike. What kind of simp bitch ass shit is this? Anyways, besides that, okay, what comes to mind with this situation here? Him thinking about things to do, him putting it into the future, him getting to this future, seeing a whole bunch of other crap which he perhaps should have done in the past. Any thoughts? Any general thoughts so far?
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of an illustration that that I've heard you make on your platform. Something that we discussed with some specificity on the show that we did on my channel called the self-esteem crisis. Um, the self-esteem crisis. We reviewed a couple Jordan Peterson videos, but the idea here is that he he set himself up for failure by not having already taken care of those chores, that stuff that he said that was stacking up. You know, well, stuff doesn't stack up unless you have not, you've not catered to it. And I something that I talk to my students about frequently is this idea of the difference between important and urgent. Important and urgent. So, urgent things are the kinds of things that you have to drop everything to cater to. The house is literally on fire. I got to get out of here. Okay? I have to grab whatever I can grab and get out now. Okay? That's an urgent matter. Important things are things that if you don't do them with regularity, if you don't do them with regularity, eventually they will become urgent. So important stuff would be stuff like uh, wash your clothes regularly, do your laundry, do the dishes, all of that kind of stuff. Something's pretty noisy. I don't know if you can you are you there? Okay, so I'm going to keep going. You're good. Okay, okay. So there is important things, urgent things. Important things are the things that you need to. They're kind of day-to-day kind of things that you need to maintain, and you'll get to a point where if you do not cater to them, if you do not address them, they will become urgent things. And see, what happens is it creates this unending cycle. And the unending cycle is that once something becomes urgent, you must drop everything. You must drop everything to cater to it. And what that does is it causes you to neglect other important things. And then those important things become urgent. And then rather than you being in control, of what's going on, controlling your own destiny, you are quite literally behind the eight ball, and you're just trying to get out of the way, of the eight ball. You're trying to just run around and put out all of these fires, and you can't be efficient. You can't generate generational wealth that way. Put it that way.
You went straight to the generational wealth. Can you hear me, by the way?
I can. Sounds
Okay.
good.
How's the audio? Okay, good. Yeah, thank you, Leroy, for letting me know that this microphone wasn't plugged in the whole time. Apparently, I was doing the whole. Anyways, so the audio quality should be.
Oh, it's great now. I was going
Yeah,
to say
yeah, yeah,
something to
yeah,
you
yeah.
too in our show yesterday. The show that we did this past Sunday.
Hmm.
That I actually kind of wondered if the mic was fully plugged in, because it did sound like more room, and the noise seems like maybe it was partially plugged in, but not all the way. So anyhow, but of course I can
it
say that
wasn't
now that
recognized.
we know what the problem was. So
Yeah. And I'm almost
I
like
could
beating
look
myself,
smart.
like, can we start the show over again? But, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you whom are listening live, apologies, okay, for the audio quality in the beginning part of the show. And hopefully, for those who may be watching the replay, you stick around long enough, not being annoyed by the horrible audio quality in the beginning, to continue the conversation. So, but I'm sure it wasn't too bad, because if it was really, really horrible, you would have said something, Dr. Thunder. But thanks, Lee Roy. Shout out to Taboo Smash. Shout out to Aaron B in the building. So yes, I like how you put that. This person has put things off. Okay, if they had taken care of the things that are confronting them when they get home, right? That pile of mail and the dishes and all those other things, then they would not be in this position. And we already see the kind of person that they are when they put off calling Mike until they got home. When they also put off doing the dishes until they got home, right? And put off all kinds of things. Hence, things start to pile up on you, okay? Now, that's not the whole point of this video here. It's not about procrastination and what have you. But I think that as the beginning, as this thing says, it says too much to do. That's the name of the stream today. Got too much to do, right? And I think that that tends to be one of the main things that you should be in the state. Let me put it this way. You should constantly be in that state where you think that there is too much, where you feel, okay, I'm using that word, feel, that you have too much to do, right? If you're kind of just floating around and you're like, oh, I have nothing to do, maybe I'll just now sit down, drink beer, put my hand in my pants like Al Bundy or something. Well, then there's something wrong, right? There's something wrong, all right? You don't want to ever be in that state. So in the pursuit of getting things done, you should want to feel a little bit overwhelmed. And I say again, feel, because it's usually not the case if you're well organized, right? Shout out to Dr. Thunder. He talks about his 2-hour commute and working full time and teaching here and trying to get the master's degree while becoming, the PhD while becoming a tenured professor and all that kind of stuff, right? I'm sure that those were, and you had a son too. You still have a son, but I'm sure it was tougher back then because the younger they are, generally speaking, right? And I'm sure those were days when you felt like overwhelmed, right? So you might want to share that again, or talk about the
Sure.
idea of feeling overwhelmed and how it is kind of part and parcel of what we're talking about here. And what we're going to talk about is ways to deal with that. It says what to do when you got too much to do, right? So feeling overwhelmed, Dr. Thunder, have you been there? Is this a normal thing? You got some pointers or like some life experiences that you want to share with us about how that goes, if you will.
Absolutely. Thanks for giving me that opportunity to share again. So, one thing that often happens is men get criticized for not being compassionate, for not having feelings or not feeling or whatever. And the thing is that that's not it's not the case. Men feel stuff just like women feel things. We feel as much as women do. There's no evidence to the contrary. Okay. However, the way we deal with those feelings is different. Okay. Women are more expressive, and they tend to know certain kinds of things to say to other people when they're going through something that comes off as being more compassionate. Men tend to swallow that stuff and use it as energy, as motivation to, to keep working hard, to do whatever's necessary. And also, men are not encouraged to share or complain a lot because, a complaining man is not, nobody's going to value that. Okay. So that I wanted to say that. So yes, we feel overwhelmed, and yes, we have feelings, and when stuff happens to us, it hurts us just like it hurts women. We just don't necessarily talk about it. Okay. Now, with respect to schedule, what my schedule was, yeah, I mean, with this, I think I started my doctorate in, what is it, 15, 16, I think. So 2015. And I finished it in 2019, the summer of 2019. That's when everything was complete. And I had a period in there where I wasn't as productive, and maybe I could have finished it a little bit earlier. But uh, but basically, I had all of these things, these competing interests. You have 24 hours a day, and you have all of the stuff that's vying for your attention, and you have to learn how to say no to a lot of stuff. And I think one of the reasons why Ike was irritated that this person was trying to prioritize calling Mike because it's his birthday is because he he probably has a lot of stuff to do also. Ike does, and that's not the kind of stuff that you can prioritize if you're trying to get the bag. Okay. So the kind of yeah, I mean, 2 hours, 3 days a week, one way commute, which is 12 hours total there and back. My son was just born. I was working 25 hours at a second job, the 25 hours a week at a church, right? Of course, I was a tenured professor. I didn't actually need the doctorate. This was something that I saw as important to, elevate my persona, to, be able to take advantage of other opportunities. We have talked frequently about this idea of leverage. And one of the things that you have to do in academia to get folks to respect you is frequently applying for jobs at other institutions. And now I wouldn't engage in that unless it was a position that I actually would be interested in taking. So I'm not just doing it just to make a point. However, that is part of the process, is to apply for positions so that they know when you get these, you're a finalist at positions, or you get offered positions, then they know that, hey, I need to do something about this. So and then, of course, I'm married, my son was just born, have a mortgage. I'm playing, in several bands, playing my own bands. I'm, working on producing another recording. I'm consistently going to the gym, oh yeah. And I was I was on a full assistantship. All right. So as I'm doing this, I'm full-time student. So full-time graduate student in at the doctoral level. That's not the same as like undergraduate studies, by the way. All right. So just in case you wondered. So the point is that you have to hyper prioritize the stuff that is important and get rid of all the rest of the crap. And and shout out to our earlier conversation that kind of got us before we started this topic. A lot of the social stuff has to be the stuff that is totally expendable. That stuff doesn't even, that is, you can't even devote one one thought, one calorie worth of thought per day on that crap.
Shout out to Black Heights, Advancing My Career, $20. That's definitely on the sponsorship category. Very, very, very generous of you, sir, contributing to the Rich Man Fund. Oh, yes, oh, yes, oh, yes. We take it over here, dollars, shekels, Ghanaian, CDs, Naira, whatever you got, Bitcoin, all that stuff. We definitely do take it. And you mentioned there that you were married while doing all this. Before I continue the video, I just wanted to mention that because someone also mentioned that having help while you're married is a good thing, obviously, but being married too is a task. So it's not just, oh, she's gonna help. Sometimes especially as a man, right? Because the way you're gonna rough and tumble through your life when you alone is different from how you can do it when there's a woman there. If that makes sense, right? So yes, a woman definitely will help you, good wife in that case, right? But being married in and of itself is also a task, right? And you can't just live that life the way you want to live it, and not sleep or not see nobody or just be a ogre for months at a time. Ain't that right, Dr. Thunder? Right? You can't, yes, she's helping, but at the same time, it is a consideration. Now, for some people, it's easier, perhaps, but at least for me, I know I gotta think about. I gotta keep that in the back of my head, right? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And the I don't know how to quantify this sort of thing, easier or harder. Um, I don't know, but I do know in my own situation, um, it takes effort. You have to look. Nobody's marriage is perfect. Nobody's marriage is perfect, and at times when you're being aggressive, chasing the bag, it means that you may have to have some intense conversations, and at times, I mean, it's not a guarantee that your spouse is always going to understand what's going on. Remember that men and women are wired differently. If you are really a man, then you can, hey, I'm going to prioritize the long game. And so if I'm uncomfortable right now, I know that eventually, and it might take a long time, but eventually I'm going to reap the reward. But you know, often is the case that women aren't necessarily wired that way, and so they need something right now. And so you have to figure out how to balance those two things. I also think it creates an interesting sort of polarity, in makes things a lot more interesting. I mean, if you can imagine if the world was just men in the kinds of stuff that men, are interested in, and how sort of boring that would be, you know. So
Yeah. So another word on that, because I mean, I think that it is a salient point. It is a point that hits home. Most people are in one kind of relationship or the other, may not even be marriage, but we understand this in the sense that we're talking about the relationship between the sexes, right? And it bears sticking to this point for a second. You talk about the kinds of things that men are going to be doing and so on and so forth, and well, why is the woman there if she's just gonna force you to give her something in the present, right? But here are the kind of things that a man will do without a woman, right? This is the thing that we've said in the channel a couple of times, right? You see, men will go out there and they will hunt this deer, right? They will kill the deer and they're just gonna throw it over the fire, and they'll probably just take like they'll take the drumstick of the deer and certain other choice parts, and they'll just roast that stuff directly and just eat it, throw the rest of it away, right? And then go get more deer. Okay. Now it's the women, okay, that'll be like, how about those other parts there? Maybe we can dry some. Maybe we can boil those other ones into a stew. Maybe we can even take the teeth and the bones and make little trinkets. Maybe we take the skin and hang it over the whatever, right? And maybe I can wrap it around my waist and dance around the fire and form this little festival while you eat the deer. So all of a sudden, the whole deer eating situation becomes a little bit more interesting. As you said, less boring. Because as a guy, you just gonna kill that thing, cut off the drumstick, roast that crap right over the fire. Okay, minimal seasoning and no pump and circumstance. Eat it, move on to the next deer. Trying to stack as many deers as possible. Let's not think about. So that's what it's going to be like. Women emphasize the experiential, and the experiential tends to be in the moment, whether we like it or not, right? So when you're saying yes, we can prioritize the long game, but the thing is to sit down and have a festival around the fire with the deer skin being used as cloth and the bones as trinkets, and you guys shaking it around and dancing, and everyone is drinking some other kind of concoction that the women made, right? You have to actually be in the moment. Okay. You can't be moving
Yep,
on to the
that's right.
next deer, right? So that's the balance there. That's the balance, right? Now, you might be like, well, F all that trinket and deer cloth and drinking stuff, dancing around the fire stuff. But even you, right, that might say that, even me that might say that, I do appreciate a little bit of that sometimes, right? It's not a total F it all the time. And I know that it would not exist at all, but for the people whom focus on the existential, the experiential. One big dichotomy to look at, with which to look at things philosophically, is on the one hand you have stoicism, on the other hand you have existentialism, right? Those are just words.
Yep.
But what do I mean by that? Stoicism is the man thing, the go hunt the deer thing, deal with nature, and nature doesn't care about your feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings. Let's just do what we got to do. The existentialist is, okay, well, how do I feel right now in the moment? How do I experience
Yeah.
the deer? How can I savor every flavor out of it, right? Hence, another way to look at it is, well, long term versus short term, or whatever it may be. But one more point on that, I'm going to continue playing the video here, is it's not a huge, if you're as a man, and let's say you're out there, you're Dr. Thunder, and you're doing you, as Leroy said. It is not a very huge burden, or it's not a big thing, because a lot of times when the woman comes to you and says, when your wife comes to you and is like, oh, we don't spend time together anymore. A man's thought, for a man like me, will be like, number one is, well, why don't you just trust the process? This is just for this time. I know when it's gonna end, right? And it's almost like, yeah, I gotta ride with three wheels right now, but I'm riding with three wheels, right? Why do we have to complain about the fact that the tire? I hear the squeaking, okay? I know that the back of the car is scraping right now, right? Why do you have to call attention to it? When we get to the next pit stop, it'll be done, okay? That's the kind of thing I mean, does that make sense, Dr. Thunder? That kind of thought that comes to your head, like, oh my God, like, like, I know, right? Like, that's, and then secondly, we think that it's bigger than it is. In other words, we think that it takes something bigger to fix whatever her complaint is. It's not. It's not that big. Okay. Number one, yes, and you have your own kind of time horizon where you're like, I can grind out the next 3 months with the three wheels, and I hear the scraping. I don't care because I know the next pit stop, I'm going to fix it. Right. But remove that from your mind. Okay. And don't expect her to be thinking that. It's foolish of you to think that that's how she thinks. Like, she's not a man, right? That's not what she's saying. And what you need to do in order to fix it is not that plain. It's not that crazy. Again, it's in the moment. It's about the experience. It's about the feeling. She's not asking you to fix the wheel right now, really. Okay, that's the trick right there. You don't have to go fix the wheel right now because you can't fix the wheel. She also knows that the wheel is going to be not fixed for the next month, right? If I'm communicating here, but it's about the feeling. Okay, here's where and that point, that's on you, right? You figure out how to fix the feeling thing. You're a human being. You got communication skills. It's almost 100% communication at that point. Right? It's not actually fixing the wheel, or, oh, do I have to now change my work schedule all around? And no. That's not what's being called for. I don't know if you have any quick comment on that quick comment on this main point, that it's not as hard to fix the feeling thing as men might think. Because men might be thinking, oh, I got to actually you want me to fix the problem right now? I can't fix the problem right now. I got to ride with the three wheels until the next pit stop. She's not asking you to fix the problem right now. She's asking you to, she wants to feel good about something.
Yeah, she's just often they just want to be heard, and and frankly, sometimes that can be frustrating, especially when you're in pursuit. You have stuff to do. You're trying to, and it's not that you I think often there's a gap or an understanding gap, but with because if you enjoy what you do, then often is the case that it can be interpreted as you're not working for the family, you're working for you, you know, that kind of thing. And and I think that's you know that there's no, there's no fix for that. If you if you can't be allowed to do what is necessary to elevate, your family to the next level because your spouse is using the um you know you don't you, you know you say you're doing this for the family, but really you're just doing this for you, or use the sort of workaholic kind of terminology, which I think is totally hogwash, you know um then you're not gonna you're never gonna you're never gonna win that. There's not really anything that you can do. But if you have a spouse that is at least understanding, and maybe she'll still say some of those things, but she's saying them under duress as opposed to as a default in a mantra, then I think you can sort of you can deal with that. So that's kind of what I think.
Yeah. 100%, 100%. So let's continue the video here. This video is about doing things. And yes, he has come home. He did not call Mike. It's Mike's birthday. Okay. He did not call Mike. He said, okay, I'll call Mike when I get home. And when he got home, there's a pile of mail, there's a pile of dishes. He's got crap to do. Well, let us continue where we left off. Let me go ahead and
Hey man, I can't hear it. I'm not hearing it. So maybe you
okay,
need to back
okay,
out
okay.
and click that thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Designed to help you keep track of tasks, ideas, and
Can
different
you hear it now?
There it
projects.
goes.
The Getting Things Done
So
system is
Yes.
made of
I'll go back.
5 simple steps. Only when your mind is clear and your thoughts like a horrible, horrible friend, you wonder, how can something so important slip my mind? The reason is very simple. Your brain is for having ideas, not for holding them. With a never ending stream of demands for your attention, both at home and at work, things are bound to slip through the cracks. Only when your mind is clear and your thoughts are organized can you achieve effective results. This is where Getting Things Done, or GTD for short, comes into play. It's a framework designed to help you keep track of tasks, ideas, and different projects. The Getting Things Done system is made of 5 simple steps: capture, process, organize, review, and engage. Everything begins with capturing all ideas, tasks, projects, to-do items, and other random bits of information that come your way every single day. These are things like emails, letters, calls, and action items that come from talking to other people, or they can be ideas
Fair
and
use.
tasks that are born in your own creativity and imagination. Wherever that information comes from, you need to capture it or externalize it so you don't have to keep it in your brain. Now that you have all this information captured, it's time to make sense of it so you can actually move forward with your goals instead of wanting to pull your hair out from all the information overload.
Okay. Let's take a brief pause here because I think that this very thing about capturing and the stress that comes upon us when we do not capture is 100% key. Now, Dr. Thunder, I know about your famous calendar. That is one way of capturing things, right? And let me get a one in the chat if what I'm about to say is clear. A lot of times when you procrastinate, it's because you feel overwhelmed by the task because you've not externalized it. What do I mean by that? It is not in a list somewhere. It is not in an instruction manual somewhere. It is not in some calendar, for example, where it's like First do A, B, C. Put left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. If it's left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, a lot of times we don't procrastinate. We're just like, oh, I could do that. I'll just start doing left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. But if it's, hey, let me take for example what happened to me recently, or what tends to happen to me a lot with regards to this thing. And externalization is something that I thought I came up with. I just use it as a way of this listing, calendaring, or counting with your fingers, even, right? It's a way of removing the stress from our brain, putting it out there so that things become a lot easier. But the point that I'm making now is that a lot of times we procrastinate because we have not externalized yet. We've not created a list. So let's take, for example, I'm an engineer. I work for many different kinds of clients, contractors, and architects. One of my architect clients, for example, has a building that he wants to design, right? So the big task, the big thing is design a building, right? And it's not just a standard building. This person wants to convert this garage into a 2-story thing. They want to raise up the height of the garage. They want to do this. They want to do that, blah, blah, blah. So it's a little complex. So I wake up in the morning and I'm like, that thing. It's easy for me to just procrastinate it because I have not externalized it yet. I have not broken it down into what is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Can I get a 1 in the chat if that makes sense? This idea of a big part of starting a task is to capture it first. We tend not to do that. The calendar, again, is one example, but I'm giving an example of rather than capturing time into chunks, I'm going to capture this design a house into chunks. I'm going to say, okay, cool. There's the gravity system of the house, and then there's the lateral support system. Gravity system just supports gravity load. Lateral supports wind or earthquake, the side to side stuff. These two things are very different. So I'm like, okay, how am I going to do the gravity stuff? Okay. So rather than procrastinate, I bring out my sheet of paper, or actually my preferred little notepad thing that I use here. And it's a lot easier. All of a sudden, I don't feel stressed about this kind of externalization because I can always sit down, no matter how big the task is, I can always sit down, pull out a piece of paper, and I can say, hey, what would I need to do? It could be something as simple as, and I've used examples before, as especially when I'm tired, it could be as simple as open email from Phil, read email from Phil, open attachment, read attachment, append attachment to this other thing. This is when you're really tired. This is when your brain is really like, but it works. Okay. So what I can do, if it's just address Phil's problem, I was like, I can't do that. I want to go to sleep. But if I externalize it, step 1, open email from Phil, I could do that. Open email from Phil. Read email, I could read it. Open that attachment, append the attachment, go find this thing. So what I do is I take that whole building, I look at the gravity system. I start saying, okay, the roof, the rafters, the beams, the ceiling joists, the studs, the this, the that, up, down the foundation. And as I'm doing that, certain problems that will be part of the solution of that, which is that building. The solution is the building. The solution is the design. Certain problems are to come to mind, like, you know what? I might need to call Alan to get this document because I just noticed that this building is in Los Angeles and it needs X, Y, and Z, right? So I write that down. Now, all of a sudden, that task of design this building, which I was going to run away from, or I'm more likely to run away from unless I capture it, this capture phase is 100% key. It's something that I've always done. Okay, I didn't know somebody else had it. I mean, calendars and all those kinds of things, I understand that they exist, but that this kind of externalization, whereby it is difficult for you to wrap your head around something and then you want to run away from something and you feel overwhelmed, and this feeling of being overwhelmed, watch out, this guy over here with his head like this, that is a lot of times 99% of the problem. It's not actually the task. It's the fact that you feel overwhelmed about the task. But what I can always do about a task as big as, design some complicated building is I can sit down with a notepad and say, what is the first thing I actually have to do about this? Okay, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And you find out that by the time you break it down like that and you captured it, you've almost done the whole job. That the hard part of the job, that is. And the next time when I come and sit down to do it, I'm like, okay, item number 1. And guess what? between capturing it and executing it, my brain is working on it because my brain has found out certain things like, oh, the property line is really the foundation is really close to the property line. I can't use this kind of foundation. I got to use a different kind of foundation, right? The brain is thinking about that. When I wake up in the next morning, it's a lot easier now. And all I've done is simply capture the task. So that is this capture thing that they're talking about. Any thoughts on this capture part of this 5-part process, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah. So um, I'm a logistics guy. Um, once I work out the logistics, then actually, following through and actually doing the stuff, that's not a big deal. But it's the logistics that, that can sort of make or break whatever it is. In the logistics is implied sort of the execution, of whatever it is that you're doing, So, all right. So there's that, and sometimes we can get in a bad habit of wasting a lot of time searching for more efficient means. So rather than trying to find the most efficient way, just start doing something, right? And so, and you did a good job, I think, of listing out a bunch of these things and how sort of granular the things that you write down can be, the tasks or the order and all of that. So that's good. One thing I think is interesting is sometimes, like with my students, I can tell that some of my students, they have a tendency to get into sort of paralysis. What is it? What is it? Analysis paralysis or whatever, where they
Paralysis.
they're not actually doing anything. They're just sitting there still. It's like, well, what should I do now? And it's like, well, the idea of practicing, for instance, is to play things that you can't play. So I'd venture to say that there's a lot of stuff that you can't play. So if you get in the practice room and you don't have an agenda, you don't have an idea of what it is that you're supposed to be doing, that can automatically create that challenge, create that issue. You feel overwhelmed because you have all of this stuff that you need to accomplish, but you haven't distilled things down into something that makes sense for you to try to walk out kind of day to day, practice session by practice session, and so on. But John Coltrane, who it's said that he practiced 12 hours a day, and so his schedule was something like get up in the morning, and the saxophone was still on him from when he fell asleep the night before practicing. Okay, continue to practice, get something to eat, keep practicing, get something to eat, keep practicing, go to the gig when everyone else is socializing. In the breaks, he's practicing, play the rest of the gig. Everyone else is done playing for the day. He goes home and he practices until he falls asleep, wakes up the next morning and keeps practicing. Now there's all these studies. Well, right, exactly. Well, he was divorced at least once. He was, so so his so he had this just unrelenting and unusual like work ethic, and just it was like an adoration. It was like an act of worship. It was just all of this intensity. And we've done all these studies now that show that how much can you actually do something for how long of a time can you do where you actually retain something, you're actually getting better as a result of it. And I think you could make arguments that he was probably playing far beyond whatever that line was, but there's still no replacement for repetition. So even if he wasn't necessarily, his brain wasn't absorbing any more of the stuff, he still was gaining a certain additional level of intimacy with the instrument, right? So he was still gaining something. Now, what if he just sat around and just waited until all of this pedagogy had developed, and these brain, studies and all this kind of stuff. Of course, that was, all happened after he died. But what if he sat around waiting that way for the most efficient method, the best strategy, and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, all of that great music that he produced and his, the legacy he
Hmm.
left, the great music, none of that would exist. So you have to do what you can do right now. You can't be
Hmm.
trying to like labor saving devices. I can hear my dad uh, talking in my ear. You know, uh, labor saving devices aren't really going to help you. You if you know what it is that you need to be doing and you're just avoiding it because you're lazy, stop doing that and get to work. It's not the better approach to doing it that is the issue. It's that you're not willing to get started.
It is not the better approach. Is that you're not willing to get started. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's continue this video here. There's a 5-step process that they're talking about. They say capture and then process. The capture one, I think that is very important, and I think that it is, or us not capturing things is a big source of the being overwhelmed. The feeling of I have too much to do. A lot of times is because we simply have not externalized. We simply have not taken those things and put it up into a list. And as a matter of fact, that listing or breaking it down, what I found out is doing the thing. It is beginning to do the thing because maybe
Yep.
it comes more naturally for other people, but for me, I'm like, that's not really, that's not. But I'm like, I can always pick up something and then start breaking it down. And as a matter of fact, I have started doing it right now. In the way there is an aspect where this tend to come more naturally to me. There are people whom, and this is about writing. Okay, I don't know what your style of writing is, Dr. Thunder. Let me ask you, do you just sit down and start writing, or do you kind of storyboard first?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of that sort of no, okay. No, I'm not going to say that. I've done it I've done it different ways. One of the ways that I've done this is the sort of brainstorming. You called it
Mm.
storyboarding, which is kind of a version of brainstorming, like where I
Okay.
throw out all of these ideas. So for instance, I was redesigning the improvisation sequence at the school I work at. Um, and and so I was like, okay, what are all of the concepts that I would like to teach? What are the things that I wish somebody was teaching? What are what is all that stuff? And so I just threw it all out. And then I said, okay, now there has to be the first class, the second class, the third class. So they had to be
Hmm.
sequential. So I had to say, okay, of the list of maybe jazz standards that I wanted to use or concepts that I wanted to have them to learn, uh what do I need to do which ones are the most rudimentary and which ones are the most advanced, right? And so I started creating some of those um sort of levels and categories. And then before you knew it, I had all of the lists that would be associated with each class. And then it was just about,
Hmm.
okay, right sizing the material in the calendar. Okay, all right,
Hmm.
now I got to do it based on lessons. Okay, so that would be a very similar process to the way that I write a book. So, I have a book
Hmm.
out called How to Improvise Over Chord Changes, which was published by Hal Leonard. Now, if you don't know who Hal Leonard is, that's the largest public publisher of sheet music and in educational music kinds of books in the country by far, in America. Actually, it might be in the world. I think it's in the world. Um, and so when it came to doing that book, I actually had a team. And so I had two of my graduate students, and then even after they finished their degrees, they stayed on to continue the work on the book. And then one other person got added to the team later on. And basically, I took the materials from the improvisation sequence and stuff that I was teaching in my applied lesson studio, and I did that. It was the same thing. Okay, now I need to break this stuff down based on, chapter by chapter. Okay, now it has to get even more refined and even more specific, right? So this whole process. So I suppose that was a brainstorming, storyboarding, however you want to say it. Maybe it was a little more extensive than that, but that's basically what the process was. Other stuff, though, I've just had an idea, and it's like, okay, how am I going to do this idea? I'll look out to see if there's any other resources that are similar, and then I'll sort of construct a model that's loosely based on some of the better performing models.
Got it. Yes. So for me, essays used to always come easy to me because my natural way of writing is to organize first, right? I always do the externalization first. I make little bubbles, right? And brainstorming is throwing ideas out there, but typically it's, you know what you're writing about. So it's not like you're trying to figure out things. It is what is the point I'm trying to make? For example, let's take for example, because and then I would teach people how to do this kind of thing, because a lot of times people just sit down and they start writing, and I'm like, how do you do that? That's why you procrastinate so much. That's why it's so hard for you, because you just want to start writing, and it's like, are you just gonna just start writing without making it easy for yourself? So I had to write a letter of recommendation recently for somebody, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I gotta be saying something about their character, right? So I'm like, okay, their character. What attributes? Okay, so, what group? And can I group these attributes? Tenacity and grit and patience. Those kind of seem like one of the same thing. Okay, so it's gonna be a paragraph about tenacity, grit, patience. Okay, there's got to be some team player and leadership stuff, right? Everybody wants to hear about that, right? So that's going to be in one kind of category as well. And then maybe something specific about skills, right? Some specific skills. Okay, maybe I'll put that in the middle. So I'm like, okay, so now I can write tenacity, grit, this, and then skills, this, then the other. Now I got 3 boxes. And I start thinking, okay, how can I fill in these boxes, right? So what I'm writing doesn't look anything like an essay. It just looks like some boxes, and then I draw lines between things that connect, okay? And then we know that there's going to be an intro and a conclusion. The intro and the conclusion is, we know what that is. It's just going to tell them what I'm about to tell them. It's been a pleasure to know this person for this long, and it's my intention to convey a particular aspects of his character in terms of tenacity and this and this and that, and the skills that blah 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 blah. And then the paragraphs come out, and then, hey, feel free to reach out to me on this with any questions, that kind of a thing, right? So I've always done that when I write. This capturing thing has always helped me write. And then naturally started to flow into other aspects of my life as well. It is a low energy effort, is what I find, in the sense that it is not as difficult to do this list writing and externalizing as it is to just jump into the task. I'm just going to start designing that building. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I could when in a particular state of mind, when it's just everything is fresh and I'm firing at all engines, but I got a whole bunch of stuff to do. It's rare that I'm in that state, but a low energy way of getting it done is to put out that piece of paper and then start going. So let's continue with the video as the time goes on here. We've talked about the capturing. Let's see what they're going to do next. I think they're going to do processing or something like that.
Step number 2 in GTD is processing. For every item that you captured, ask yourself the following question. Is it actionable? The possible answers are 2 and 2 only. Yes or no. If the item is actionable, like an email from a colleague asking you about an update for the project you're working together, ask yourself a follow-up question. Would it take 2 minutes or less to complete? If the answer is yes, go ahead and do it. If the answer is no, you need to put this action off for later by adding the item to an action list. More on that in step number 3. If it will take you 30 seconds to reply to your colleague's email, it makes sense to take care of it on the spot and move on. If you need to have a 20-minute conversation on the topic, it's best to schedule it in the future. If the item you're processing is not actionable, like a confirmation of a payment you made for your monthly internet bill, you have two choices: discard it or keep it as a reference in case you need that info down the road. Repeat the same process for every piece of information. You've processed the information, things are already looking up for you. Now you need to.
Okay. So the process part, this is interesting because I haven't really dug into this video. I just found it today. So the actionable thing or non-actionable, I didn't quite understand before, but now I get it when I say it's only two things that it could be. It's either there's something you have to do or can do about it, or it's just something to file away or put away or whatever, right? So if you can do something, then it is something you is it something you should do now? In which case they're saying, hey, if you can do it quickly, right, then do it, right? If it is, I just pick up a phone call, I 2 minutes, send an email, say yes, 30 seconds, easy to do. But if I got to go rent a trailer, to do it, then leave it alone, put it away for a day in your calendar. Say, well, I got to rent a tractor truck, right? And then I got to pack up this stuff, right? So, any thoughts about that and that kind of a mode of organizing? I think the actionable versus actionable, that's kind of obvious, right? You can either do something about something or there's nothing to be done about it. But the whole idea of scheduling based on time. If I can do it right now and it's going to take 30 seconds, then I do it. Otherwise, I may want to push it into the future a little bit. Is that how you would go about things, or you have a different approach?
Well, This is interesting. Uh, one reason I like this is because it gives you something concrete. He's not leaving stuff out. I think what can happen to folks that are already having a struggle, being productive, um, is if there's sort of nebulous, you know, aspects to things. Then the more nebulous stuff, the harder it is to keep things moving, right? And so he, by saying it's yes or no, if you can do it in 2 minutes, then go ahead and do it. You know, if a phone call is going to take more than 30 seconds or whatever this response is going to take more than 30 seconds, schedule it later. Um, so I like that, and I think that this approach would work well hand in hand with the sort of calendaring system that I have, where what the calendar does is it is uh, it's looking at all of the things that you have to do, and it's actually allotting a time on the calendar that you will take care of whatever that thing is. And it's the kind of thing where uh, it's going to change. It'll be seasonal, and then you'll become better at it. You'll learn as you learning more about yourself, how long it tends to take you to do certain kinds of tasks. You'll allot more time or less time based on that. You'll also learn how to actually put everything on the calendar and not leave stuff out so that there's no questions as to what it is that you need to do. I find that by actually getting stuff down on the calendar, so long as I make sure that I look at the calendar in the morning as I'm going, it's a tremendous stress reliever. It's a tremendous stress reliever. Because I'm not like trying to remember stuff that I need to do, but rather the stuff is already written down. It's already handled. And then you know he was suggesting the thing about, okay, assign it for a future thing, right? Well, that can go on a task list, right? So a task list would go hand in hand with the calendar. So now I've allotted a particular amount of time for all of these different tasks, and that will include appointments either with other people or blocks of time that you need to cater to certain kinds of tasks, whatever. But then the task list is the stuff that you'll actually do. The agenda items will be the things that you're actually addressing. So yeah,
Hmm.
that's what I think.
Hmm. Hmm. I like that. I like that. I like that. And we, as a matter of fact, God, this video is only like 8 minutes, the video that we're reviewing, but we're barely into it and we're running out of time. I would like us to perhaps continue next time with the rest of this, 5-step process that they have. And I think that
Yeah, I, I,
the
I like it.
capturing, yeah. The capturing has been a big thing. Okay. There's one big takeaway as to why you feel overwhelmed is, well, maybe you haven't captured the stuff and externalized it yet. Because when you externalize it, as Dr. Thunder just said, then you're stress relieved, right? You're like, it's not some abstract thing, some weight on my shoulder, some list in my brain, right? It is right there. It is outside and I can follow instructions. Okay. It's like, again, counting with your fingers. Counting with your fingers is also externalization. It's the same thing. It's about removing things from having to be these abstract objects in your head, which take energy to kind of hold. It's like, your brain is this kind of water wave and or a wave of water. Anyways, let me not get into physical analogies. It might just confuse things a little bit more. Point is, it takes energy to hold things in your head. Okay. It takes energy to hold things in your head. If you can put it outside of your head,
Yeah.
you're actually not going to feel like you have so much to do anymore. A big part of you feeling overwhelmed and thinking, oh my God, I got too much to do, is you haven't captured it. You haven't externalized it. You don't have the habit of storyboarding, bringing out a sheet of paper, an iPad, whatever it may be, and just kind of put it down. And I like that you said that you'll get better at calendaring and at externalization as you go. Today, for example, okay, I was able to achieve 3 tasks. In the past, I would have written down on the paper like 7 tasks. Now I'm starting to realize, eh, things take longer than that,
Mhm.
right? It was just okay. Well,
It always takes
finalize this
longer than you
drawing.
think it will.
Always, whether it's always you want to build
Yep.
that shed or remodel your kitchen. It's going to take longer. It's going to cost more. You're going to take more trips to Home Depot than you thought, right? You think, okay, I'm going to wake up on Saturday morning. I'm going to take one trip to Home Depot. I'm going to get this, and this. And then it's like, no, you're going to spend more. It's going to be 3 weekends, not one weekend. It's going to be 4 trips to Home Depot, not one. Okay. You're gonna have to go back and it was the wrong blah 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 blah. That's how it is. But today I wrote down the 3 and I achieved the 3 and I thought I would be able to do more, right? But it actually was just 3 because it seemed simple to finish this particular package and send the invoice for it. And then finish this other thing and then do that. Do this and then gather up the materials and then call the client, blah, blah, blah. And those things, just each one of those like took like 2 hours. Each one of them like took like 4 hours. And if you look at it, it seems simple, like just finalize it. But now we will continue with the conversation about this getting things done method, the GTD method. Mr. Allen, somebody or the other wrote a book about it, and I found out this particular, or I saw this summary of his book. But there's a question on the on the screen, and it is shout out to Solo TV 84, Ramil, Chantel, Dr. Thunder, and myself. We do a show every Sunday, generally speaking. We didn't do one last Sunday. We're not going to do one this Sunday because, people like to do family stuff or Thanksgiving stuff, whatever that means, right? But the last time we did a show, we talked about, maybe it wasn't the last time, but we talked about needing more money than you actually think you do, right? And this idea of financial goals came up. And to the whole point of externalization, shout out to Kevin Samuels again. The reason why he asks people, okay, where do you want to live? Okay, how many kids do you want? Well, what kind of car, what kind of house, whether it's like that kind of a thing, is to get people on task, perhaps kind of bring the goal down into bite-sized pieces. Okay. If for most people, that's what you have to do. Okay. If you haven't done that, you got to do it. There are others who just have a vague idea of the lifestyle in terms of, like, for example, I don't have a number for my financial goal. And I'll let you answer this question, Dr. Thunder, because I think it's relevant to the kind of things that we're talking about. We're talking about getting things done, and you got to have something that you're trying to do, right? And you have to have maybe a long term or a dream goal, as you like to you say it, and then dream goal, long term, short term, intermediate goals, and then little granular goals and stuff like that. At a degree to which you can kind of articulate it, the more likely it is you can actually have a target to aim for and then actually hit the target. So for me, it's not a number, okay? It tends to be a life. I need to be able to be in Africa for 3 months, for example. How much money does it take to do that kind of a thing, right? I am in Africa right now, speaking to you from Accra, Ghana, and I'll be here for till the end of February because I got to do some things here, okay? What kind of a life, what kind of a job do I have to be able to do that kind of thing? And by job, I mean, can I be in a 9 to 5, having to show up in a building, and also then being in Ghana for 3 months? Not likely, right, Dr. Thunder? Right? So it's like I knew to kind of maneuver myself out of cubicle lifestyle, right? Because I'm an engineer. I got my master's in engineering. I'm licensed in 3 states, about to be 6 states. I started out in the cubicle like most engineers do. But I knew the kind of life I like to live, meaning because I have other habits and desires and likes, such as music, for example, I know I want to be able to maybe be more free with my time, right? Back in the day, I used to tour more, do more gigs, not as much now, but it's still part of the list. It's still part of why I do what I do, so that I can go back to that at some point. And things such as coming here, living in Africa for 3 months, while also having a residence over there, what does that cost? There's a number associated with that. I know what those numbers are. But for me, the goals are more lifestyle goals. And to put it simply, it's I need to have the ability to do all the things that I like to do and develop in all the different areas I like to develop, whether it be engineering, real estate and construction, YouTube, music, writing a book, whatever it may be. There's a certain kind of life, certain kind of mobility, certain kind of thing that it takes. And you need to generate the money to do that. So those are my financial goals. I don't know how you go about answering that kind of a question, Dr. Thunder.
Yeah. Yeah, mine, I don't have a number either. The kinds of things that I want to accomplish in my life, um, I, I mean, I suppose some of them I decided on because of maybe a degree of financial independence that maybe those sorts of things would provide, or enough visibility doing the kinds of things that I enjoy, so that my effort. I mean, I'm going to work until the day I die. That's
Mhm.
what's going to happen, because that's the kind of person I am. And now, do I want to be digging ditches when I'm 75? No. Um, so the kind of work I want to be able to set things up so that when I retire from my teaching position, um, that I can sort of move into something else that I can put a lot of time and effort into, something that is not manual labor, and so I'm not eating dog food, because I made poor financial decisions. So yeah, financial independence and the ability to pretty much travel, go to wherever I want to, whenever I want to do it, without having to sort of, take a, you know, take a long look at my account and strategize ways to delay paying stuff. So uh, that's the basic. That's the basic stuff that I want to be able to do. I want to be able to always send my kid to private school, be able to afford anything that he wants, um, be able to buy him, new vehicle when he graduates from high school with cash, all of that kind of stuff. There's other things like that too, But those are some of my basic goals.
Gotcha. Yeah, and
Right.
you were answering the question that's on there right now about how or whom you're doing it for. Um, so, intermediately, there was a comment there about by Leroy about the people not being happy. I always push back on the whole associating money with happiness because people are miserable. I don't care if you're broke or whatever. Like we forget all the broke, miserable people. We want to talk about the rich, miserable people, right? Like, oh, you see, he doesn't look happy even with all that money. Look, man, a lot of broke, miserable people too. And if you're gonna be miserable, might as well got money. That's what I look. Money can't buy happiness, but it'll buy Cheetos, it'll buy a vacation, it'll buy a refrigerator, it'll buy a car for your kid, it'll buy
A
air
housekeeper.
conditioning out here. It'll buy a housekeeper in a hot ass Accra that I'm in right now. It's great to be in a nice place in Accra with great air conditioning in a very safe neighborhood. And my neighbors are the politicians who are stealing the money from the country. Shout out to them. But it's nice to be here. I'd rather be if I were miserable, which I'm not. My misery has nothing to do with, in other words, not everybody's as lucky, right? Some people are happy. I'm a happy person, right? I'm a happy person. I'm a person who loves what I do. And by what I do, I mean just life. There are many things that I like to do, right? But if I were going to be miserable, I'd rather be miserable here in my air conditioning, next to these other people, where it's safe, where the floors are shiny, and I got all kinds of space and nice flower trees around me and all that kind of stuff, and security and housekeeping. I'd rather be miserable here. Okay. But I'm not miserable. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
about go ahead.
Leroy also we also made a comment about my dog food comment. He said that dog food is probably more healthier than what most Americans eat on a daily.
Probably true.
There's probably some truth to that. I still don't want to have to eat dog food, which was my point actually. You know, I'd like to be able to choose dog food if I'd like to, but if I'd like to eat something else, eat that.
100%. 100%. But I understand the whole bringing in of the happiness thing. A big part of my channel of what I do is the whole mastery of subjective consciousness thing, right? Mastery of subjective consciousness, how to deal with yourself. And that's what we were talking about today as well. Okay. We talked about the feeling of having too much to do, the feeling of being overwhelmed, and how you can challenge that. Whether you're broke or you're rich, you're gonna have that feeling, right? A lot of like, and then how do you deal with that kind of thing? Now, in this particular way that we talked about it was more, shall we say, um, not in a profound way. We did not go foundational with it, but one of the main things that I like, my whole mastery of subjective consciousness, and the reason I bring it up right now is that it has nothing to do with being rich or poor or nothing, right? And I don't care how much money you have, if you do not have equanimity, right, and you don't know how to develop that in yourself, nothing's ever going to work for you, right? But to the practical points of, well, make sure that you don't F up your social situation, right? Your family situation by chasing the bag too hard, right? I think we also give some pointers as to, how one balances that as well. Okay. And as to the question of whom I do it for, those are the kinds of questions I don't really know how to answer, because my tendency as a philosopher type is to push things to the furthest out why. And when you get that far, the answer doesn't even really make sense anymore, right? It's like,
Mhm.
this is for my family. It's for this. Like, I don't do those intermediate steps of thinking about. It's just, well, why? It's like, well, because I have a zest for life. Why? Because I'm alive. I don't all those
Yeah.
other things, including family, including daughter for wife. All those things are just ephemeral. Whatever, right? It's because I'm alive. That's why I do what I
What
do.
do you think?
Right?
What do you think of? What do you think of like when people ask things like, uh, "What do you think you were meant to do?" or "What is your calling?" What is your purpose? Um, what do you think of those kinds of? Okay, now first of all, let's take it to mean to come from someone that is serious minded and not just someone that is uh, you know it's kind of like having to you know is there a God?
Mhm.
What is God? Kind of question, but coming from someone that is just you don't know if they're serious minded or not, and you don't know really
Mhm.
what they're asking, because on the surface, God is something totally different than if you probe deeply, and and by the time you get probe deeply, it may you know derail the conversation or whatever. But let's take it to,
Mhm.
to be coming from someone that is serious minded, that it maybe has thought fairly deeply about this kind of question. But what do you think of those things? Purpose, your calling, what are you meant to do? Those kinds of things.
Yes. My response to it is a feeling response. Because, again, as a philosopher type, there are many books we could write about purpose,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm assuming the person probably has read those books or something like that, and that's not really what they want from me, right? Because the philosophy answer will be, well, let's try to define these different categories of purpose and then try to that's not what the person wants. So they want my visceral reaction. My
Yep.
visceral reaction is almost a silence and no reaction. No, what I mean is, my purpose is to not think about those kinds of things. It's my purpose is to be, right? And the moment I start putting mind into it, okay, the moment I start like trying to scheme something, I feel that I'm off already. I'm already off the path, right? My purpose is to be, and to be in alignment with being as much as I can to the best of my ability and my understanding. Sometimes it means being in the moment, right? Which means mastering my subjective consciousness again, such that I have concentration, sensory clarity, and equanimity, and I'm not being moved around like a by the puppet master, right? Puppet master of my emotions and the feelings and so on and so forth. Not, shall we say, prioritizing the lower things over the higher, that kind of a thing. That tends to align with being more. That tends to align with the logos more. And the more you do that, the more you shut up, right? The more I do that, the more I shut up, the more there are no words to be said. My purpose, all I see is silence, right?
Mm.
It's almost like a meditative worship state of
Like
being,
hesychasm, right?
right? Exactly.
Um,
So, but let me ask you, how would you answer that, or how do you feel about that question?
yeah, this is it's a tough question uh, because I think that uh, where you are, what your current situation is going to have a pretty it's going to have a big effect on how you answer the question, or what your perception of you know what your purpose is. So I can go general. I can say, okay, one of my purposes, it has to be as a provider for my family, and then as a father for my son, to model certain things that I want uh, him to model. So I could, as far as a function, I could maybe answer aspects of the question based on function, how I function. So if I, for instance, decided that I don't want to function that way anymore, what would that do to the folks that depend on me? the people that are looking at me for guidance and that kind of thing. So I could maybe make an aspect of the decision based on that. But this being, human beings, not human doings kind of thing. Um, uh, yeah, I think existing is its own thing, and I believe that uh, one thing that I am, if there is a calling, is the call to worship. But I don't mean that in a sort of hyper religious sense. I mean it in the sense that um, whatever it is that I'm doing is either positive or negative, right? I'm either working towards something or I'm digressing. To the extent that I'm progressing, then uh, then worship is the center of that.
Mhm.
So practicing to become better, that's an act of worship. You know, um, uh, everything that I do, sacrificing, my time, trading my time at times for money to be able to take care of my family. That's an act of worship. Treating people with respect. That's an act of worship. You know, um, being generous, being honest. All of that kind of stuff. So I would say, in that sense, but I hesitate to, for reasons that you sort of alluded to, I hesitate to go further than that, because I think as you get closer to whatever your destiny is, none of us know what that is. I mean, I don't know, we can want to do something, but what we want is based on who we are right now. It's not based on who we will become. By the time we
Mhm.
become that person, you may not want that anymore, and it may not be what
Mhm.
what you need to steer towards. So anyhow, that was that's a good exercise at the end of this episode here.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. And our resident Leroy has the final question about the about motivations, and I told him he doesn't want an answer, and he probably could guess my answer. And actually, one of the things I ask people, because some people, I have, shall we say, mentees of sorts. And one of the things I ask them is, hey, if you're alone in an island, and this is for them to try to gauge both the type of person that they are and what they want. If you're alone in an island, you have all the resources. No one else is there. Okay, you got all the resources to make all the guitars or all the books or all the boats or all the whatever it is that whatever it is you could do anything. What would you spend the rest of your time doing? Hey, let's even make it eternity, right? What would you be doing? And then that begins to
Mm.
focus people's minds. Now, I actually think people are very different. I don't mean that each person is a snowflake and all individual snowflakes. No, I mean that there are these at least groups and categories of people, and that they can be very different, as you would imagine, right? Why wouldn't they be different? You need all types for the whole game to continue to play, right? I'm the type that, yes, I will have so much crap to do if I was the only one. I don't think that there is enough lifetimes for me to continue to do and be hyper motivated as I am right now. That it really doesn't really have anything to, just like I answered that question and I said it's about being and not about any of the particular circumstances of my being, including other people and whom they are right now, whom they happen to be in my relation to them. That this is true of me, and I don't expect it to be common either, right? Okay. I don't expect that to, I'm not saying that this is the right way, the wrong way, or the common way. But yes, I am the one that is always just thinking about being. Okay. And if I'm alone, oh, trust me, there's a whole lot of being to be and a whole lot in being to explore without anyone around. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue the conversation next Tuesday. This particular conversation on getting ish done with I Conducted Thunder on this 5-step process of getting things done. Right? Today we've covered capturing and a little bit of processing. Capturing is that externalization, putting things in a calendar, right? Making sure that you can break things down into actionable steps, because this removes it out from your brain and you feel less overwhelmed. And then there's the processing aspect. Can you do something about it, or can you not do something about it? Can you do it now, or should you do it later? And then you put it in an action list or task list, as Dr. Thunder called it. But we will continue next time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again. What was the super chatter's name? Right there for the $20 super chat. Black Heights Advancing My Career. Thank you very much for the $20. Very, very much appreciated. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we are gone.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what was behind the curtain, the face of evil lurking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannon could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising and hearts are compromising, convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest and the righteous in your corners.